a local celebrity here in Austin, a dating coach that empowers her clients. And what she does is she helps them find love using a systematic 3-phase process that takes out the guesswork and makes dating easy, fun, and above all, real. And on top of that, she's been in Bustle, Huffington Post, Betches, Tinder, and Thought Catalog. I mean, holy crap. So this woman knows her stuff. Yeah. So excited to pick her brain and deliver y'all some awesome value. So welcome, Elsa.
Thank you.
It's so exciting to have you on again. This is our second interview. So yeah, I guess let's get started about femininity in the modern era. So I guess, what does that mean to you? And what are some of your thoughts on dating as a powerful woman this day and age?
So first of all, thanks for having me again. I'm really excited to expand on this topic because when we started it last time, I was in a very different place in life. I was fresh out of a breakup, and that topic was just so near and dear. It still is, but like it was so fresh, and I felt like I was sharing in part from a somewhat wounded place just because the breakup was so fresh. And a big part of why that breakup even is because I was perceived by my partner at the time to be too masculine. And I don't think that either of us really had the right vocabulary to describe what we were trying to say, but we tried our best. And what really came out for him, what surfaced for him, was that he felt like when I was focusing on my business and like growing my business, that I had just lost a lot of my feminine touch. And I was all about, the hustle, and I still am, but I was all about the hustle. And I had a hard time kind of winding down and just like being present with him as a partner. And so I took that feedback with a grain of salt, but I still took it because I do think that it is very relevant. And since my breakup, I've had a lot of conversations with women where this is present in their lives as well. Like they just can't, they find it really hard to turn off the part of them that's like, go, 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 like hustle, like telling people what to do, and having all your ducks in an order. Like it's kind of hard to turn that off and then just like learn how to just be more feminine, which is essentially like holding space, being nurturing, listening. It can be very challenging to switch between the two. And at first, I think I was very resistant to it because I was like, I shouldn't have to change for anyone. Like, this is me. This is how I show up. But really what was happening was I was denying myself a really big part of who I am, which is a feminine woman. Like, I do have a lot of feminine qualities that I hadn't really connected with, like my creativity, my flow, my intuitiveness. Like I was kind of blocking all those parts of me because I thought that in order to succeed in business, I had to grasp onto this very masculine persona. And while that masculine energy can be very useful for a lot of things, I don't feel complete unless I incorporate more of the feminine. So that relationship ended, and it ended for more reasons than just that. But for me, what it means to be a feminine woman in the modern era is, yes, you want to focus on your career. And yes, you want to be a badass, and you want to be empowered, and you want to be comfortable in your sexuality, and you want to be comfortable using your voice. But at the same time, you don't want to forget your feminine power as well. Because there is a way to tune into both. And for me, what that's looked like, it's looked like turning off the laptop and really being present with my partner. Like I'm dating again and I'm out meeting people, and like it's learning how to like shut off that part of me that just wants to talk about work and reconnecting with like things, like talking about other things, talking about nature, talking about what I ate that day, talking about having fun, just being present and not really feeling like I always have to lead with what I've accomplished that day. And those are still great conversations, and I appreciate men who create space for it. But for me, it just means being able to dance between both energies, being able to be in your masculine and also be in your feminine. So yeah, that's what it means to me.
I love it. Yeah, I think that's kind of the struggle of, being a woman with a lot of goals, is that dating requires behavioral flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
And when you want it, if you're likely, that powerful woman yourself, you're probably going to attract a powerful partner. And even then, it's like a more push and pull, and you have to find areas of compromise and reminding yourself to just let go and release control, which I'm a type A person. I love control. So it can be hard for me.
And you also attract, like I've learned that when you are not able to get in touch with your femininity, you actually attract men who are more feminine, because in a dynamic between two people, there's always a natural alpha, and not a natural alpha necessarily, but there's always someone who's naturally more masculine and kind of takes on that role and leads. And sometimes it's like a trade-off. Like, some days you're the one who's more masculine, other days it like kind of switches off. But for the most part, it does always kind of feel like one person holds that role. And so what I found is that when you're not in touch with your feminine, you tend to attract men who are too feminine, in the sense that they're not really in touch with their masculine. And then you end up taking on that role, and you become resentful after a while because you don't have that masculine container allowing you to be in your feminine. So that's a whole other part of the equation.
Oh yeah. That's a good point too, because you can also attract the people that are going to trigger you because your unconscious mind is like, I need you to resolve this, so I'm going to keep attracting it to you for you to resolve.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I'm glad you mentioned that. So speaking of dating, as a dating coach, what is that like?
It's really fun. I really love that you said it was really fun. Like, you kind of beat me to it. I don't think I had really thought about like how to put words to that. So, and I know it's so simple. It's like, it's fun. It's fun because I have so many tools, and I mean, I'm still human. I'm not like robotic, and just, not everything is like a 3-step process once you're actually in it. But for the most part, that 3-step process has been very, very powerful for me, because within that 3-step process are an entire toolkit of strategies in terms of like communication, discerning whether someone is worth my time. And so in a nutshell, it's really fun, and it's also like really easy because, and I'm sure like you experience this too, like I don't waste my time with the wrong people. I really don't. Like, I embody my talk. I walk my talk. Everything I tell my clients to do is something I've done myself. I'm not like on my high horse just giving orders. Like, I'm doing the work too. And it feels really good because I only spend time with people who appreciate me, who value me, who put in effort into seeing me. And that feels very aligned, and it just makes dating really fun and easy because it's like a bunch of really cool experiences with high quality people. So yeah.
Have you come across anyone that was like, oh, are you going to analyze my behavior?
Kind of. I would say that like that's probably it, depending on what context they say that in. But like, if it's coming from a place of like immaturity, I don't think I have a lot of patience for it. Like, if I do that, I'm like, all right, it's been real. But if it comes from a place of like it's a joke and it's just them just being playful, then I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I've only really had that once. And that was like a while ago, but I have gotten like, well, you're a coach, so do you do everything like you tell your clients to do? And I'm like, well, I mean, for the most part, yeah, but I'm also human, and coaches, like, we're not meant to be perfect. We still make mistakes. We're still learning. There's still things we have to learn. And it's about identifying, okay, this is not something I'd do again, or I'd recommend to my clients to do. And cool, now I know, and now I'm a better coach, having made that mistake. So,
because that's where we get our tools from. I mean, some of our tools we acquire through research, Some we acquire through training, and then others we acquire through experience or acquire through experience. And experience is required to get that. And within experience are mistakes. So yeah, I agree with that.
There was, yeah, this is kind of related, but someone said to me, like, women are becoming more empowered. They're starting to get more education. They're starting to get paid more. And that means they're likely going to look for partners. And this person's opinion was this: women look for partners equal to them in education and finances or better. So that means as men don't rise to the occasion, there's going to be, less pool to pick from, and a lot of men that are like struggling to keep up. And I was wondering what your thoughts are on that.
That's a great point. Yeah, I agree. I mean, you like, if you're a woman who is highly educated and who's investing in herself, it's only natural that you'll want a match for that. However, education is attained through different ways. So yeah. Like, you might be someone who has a doctorate and maybe your partner does not. That doesn't mean that you're better than him. It doesn't mean that you're necessarily more educated than him. It just means that you've attained your education in one way, and maybe he's attained it through an online course, or through, like, maybe he's just he's attained it through reading, or maybe he's attained it because he opened a business at 23 and has been doing that for 10 years and has pretty much had an MBA indirectly because of experience. So I think that we have to be careful about, like, what we describe as having an education. And obviously, if it's a deal breaker for you that your partner has to have gone to college and all of that, like, I'm never someone to say, like, go against your deal breakers just to make something work. But I think we just have to be careful with how we assess that.
Yeah. I mean, I think personally for myself, like, that's a very generalized statement that all women want the same or better. I think it's, it's about values, and sometimes, yeah, they might make less, but they're driven or more driven, or they have more education. It's like there's all different tiers of qualifications. So I think it comes down to values and chemistry and being able to grow together.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, can they still contribute to my life? Are they still contributing to my life? Am I learning something from them, regardless of their background and mine?
Mm-hmm. So who do you work with? You work with men and women?
Yes.
Do you work with more of one gender, or is it pretty even?
Lately, the scale has been kind of tipped towards both sides. When I first started, I was working mostly with men, and then I transitioned to work with women for a while because that's just what felt aligned at the time. And then something kind of emerged for me, and I wanted to invite men back into my practice. And now it's kind of even between both. Yeah.
Cool. What's it like working, like, with the two different genders? Do they have similar issues or different problems?
I think they have very similar issues. I think they describe them differently, though. Women have a way of, and again, this is not a generalized statement, everyone's different, but for the most part, women have a way of, like, women are very emotionally expressive. So when they talk about their dating frustrations, a lot of it tends to be, like, a lot more personal, and there's always, like, it just feels like a lot more personal and a lot more emotional. It's more about how they feel, like how they're being made to feel in their dating life. Whereas men are more concerned with, like, that data and the evidence. Like, like, I've been on Bumble or Hinge, and, like, basically, like, I only have, like, a 40% conversion rate, or, like, 70% conversion rate, like 20 conversations, and, like, only 10 of them turn into like actual getting a response, and, like, only 3 of them actually end up being dates. Like, men are, like, more concerned with data, whereas women are more concerned with, like, emotions. Like, I just, like, yeah, so that's definitely a difference that I've noticed. However, the common thread is that both are looking for partners who are going to meet them intellectually, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. And women have an easier time, it seems, that they have an easier time kind of admitting that like what's holding them back is past pain and past experience. So now they're like more closed off, whereas men have a hard time admitting to that. It usually takes like a few more conversations or a longer conversation to kind of weed out the fact that like they're kind of in the way of themselves also because of past pain. So those are probably the trends that I see the most, but they're both looking for the same thing essentially.
Yeah, I love that. It's so true. That's interesting about your clients and like analyzing the numbers. I find that really interesting.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about quarantine and how to date in quarantine, because that's kind of relevant.
Kind of.
Kind of. I'm sure some people are probably wondering.
Totally. So I just did a live training about this yesterday, and I think quarantine has actually been a heaven sent for dating. I really do think that like we needed this. We really needed this. I can tell that this is not even gender specific. Like people were just tired, like just really tired of like swiping and like being ghosted and like going on dates that were not fulfilling. And this was just like a common sentiment. And it's funny because right before we went into quarantine, I gave a live speech on this, a live talk on this at MSW Lounge in Austin. And I had like a room full of like 40 people just complaining, like men and women, about like how tired they were of online dating and just dating in general. And like everyone just kind of like, when I was telling them that I really want to see things kind of go back to the way they were a few years prior, obviously with adjustments, because again, women are so much more empowered now and all that. But like what I was really getting at is that I really miss when people slowed down. And it's like recommending this idea of like slow down, like really slow down. Take time to get to know the person in front of you. Don't give up on them right away. At the same time, don't overinvest when it's not the right person. But I just kept seeing this trend of like, let me just go on to the next one, go on to the next one. I don't like this. Okay, I'm just going to move on to the next one. And I was really urging people to slow down. And now we have to slow down. Like you are forced to get to know someone emotionally, and you're kind of forced to stick around for their quirks to see if there's merit there and if your values align, and you're kind of making decisions. I've seen people discern the last few weeks better than I ever have. Like I feel I see people like really finding out like, do our values align? Do we want the same things in the future? Is there chemistry? Like asking themselves all these questions before they even go on a date, which is really great because now when they're on a date, they've already done a lot of discernment and they're narrowing down their pool to quality options, and they're minimizing their risk of paradox of choice and FOMO. And they're focusing on one person because there's danger in going out and meeting like 3 different people a week. You can't do that. You instead have to get to know one person slowly at a time before you see them physically. So I think that that's very healthy. And I think we needed this. So in terms of like dating in quarantine, I think like if you're not on apps, now is a good time to be on them. Obviously do it with intention. Like you don't want to overwhelm yourself, but being on apps right now is probably pretty wise. Having a profile that really highlights who you are and is really focused on your personality and not just your looks. And then taking advantage of video calls, video dates. I think it's a great time to do that.
What about those people that are anti-dating apps?
For people who are dating anti-apps, personally, I'm not on dating apps. I don't actually use them. My clients use them and they get great results, and I help them all. Like I've helped all my clients optimize their profiles. But personally speaking, I am not on apps for a myriad of reasons. I'm sure you can understand also, like being a dating coach, I don't necessarily want to be on apps. But I think you can meet people in so many other ways. You can meet people through your network. Like I'm a huge fan. If you have the time right now, like, and you have friends who are doing virtual happy hours, jump in. jump in, like virtual happy hours. There's so many things that I see on Facebook happening all the time. Create content even, because when you're on social media and you're being active, the cool thing about social media is that if someone does reach out to you on social media, I don't want to say slide into your DMs because I don't like the way that sounds, but you can also meet people on social media, and social media has less of a stigma because people aren't on there for dating. They're on there to express who they are and express what they're doing in their life. So that's another really cool way to meet people. And also there might be people who are already in your network who you know personally, who you've never, like, who maybe like you've had a hunch that there could be something there, but you never really explored it. It's great if you already know them in person, because then you already know what they look like and what they're like. So that's another arena that you can explore. So I think there's
now's the time to not be shy and talk to your crush.
Yeah. And I mean, shameless plug, if that's okay with you, but like, I have a Facebook group called Down to Mingle, and it's literally centered around that. Like, it's a group of conscious daters who are mostly Austin based. And these are people who have all had to answer a series of questions before entering the group. And I personally know most people in the group so far. We're growing like kind of fast. So there's obviously like, there's some people now that I don't know, but everyone's kind of connected in one way or another. So you're in a safe pool of people. And I know of matches that are happening behind the scenes because of the group. So that's like another opportunity, because it's a group centered around that. But at the same time, there's not too much pressure. It's not a dating app. And when you introduce yourself, you're opening yourself up for connection, but you're also not like, you're not begging for it. And if it's not a match, it's not a match. But at least you're putting yourself out there in a place that's safe and that's filled with high quality people like you. So
yeah, it's an awesome group. I'm in it.
Thanks.
And I've invited some friends over, some single friends that were wanting to meet people, even during this Corona time. But yeah, I really like, it's super genuine, and it's I don't feel like anyone is hungry. You know what I mean? Because
we don't allow that.
Yeah, so it's just like, hey, let's authentically get to know one another and form relationships, and then see what goes from there, because that's how it starts.
Exactly.
I love that. Yeah, I haven't been on dating apps for a little bit, but it's funny because I used to be like against social media, like hitting on people through social, but it's worked for me. So
I mean, the thing is, Hannah, I mean, if you're at a party, a house party, and someone comes up to you and says hi, and they start having a conversation with you, or maybe they don't even say hi, they just jump into a conversation with you, we're so much more receptive to that because it's been accepted, it's been socially condoned, and we've just kind of gotten used to it. But it's all the same thing. Like, whether a person walks you up to someone and introduces you, that's kind of what a dating app is doing. It's just putting you in front of someone who's within your vicinity. And the difference is there's more of a filtering going on, because obviously they're on there to meet people. But even with social media, it's almost like being at a party and like meeting eyes with someone and then just going up to them and having a conversation. Like, it's someone who somehow has found you through their orbit, and it's an introduction. Like, if you end up talking to that person and there's no merit to it, there's no merit to it. But I'm always for people meeting more people. Like, I think expanding your social network, I don't think anyone's too cool for that. Like, we can always be having great conversations. We can always be meeting more people. And the moment that it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in the past when I thought that, it was like my own block, but no, yeah, it's all about how you approach. I think when I was like bodybuilding, I would get some weirdos messaging me.
I can imagine that.
So yeah, it's just about how you approach people and how you communicate from there, how you play the game of getting to know them in an authentic way. Yeah, so one question I have for you is, I know people who just aren't into texting, or it's, especially now, it's it's not a great way to get to know people or communicate, especially right off the bat, in my opinion. So what's some good ways to transfer the texting to a video call or a phone call, like without coming across as like too much or whatever?
And is this after you've already had a date, or is this when you just met?
This is like when you're courting, like I guess you're gonna go on it. It's like implied you're gonna go on a date. Y'all are flirting or y'all are talking. How do you get into a phone conversation, video call?
So I like to be very playful when it comes to getting what I want with messaging. I do believe in transparent communication, and I don't think you should like dance around the topic by any means, but I do like introducing play, just because it's a fun way to get your point across, and it just keeps the energy lighthearted and positive. So like a way that I might handle that is just being like, well, I would really like love to tell you, but I kind of want to hear your voice I kind of want to hear the reaction in your voice when I share that with you. Like that's a really playful way to do it. Or like,
I love that. That's
good. Yeah. So that's how I would go about it. Just adding a playful tone to your request.
So it's like kind of making it like flirty, like making it a little funner, more sexier, instead of being like, you know what, I feel more comfortable if you call me, or I feel more comfortable if you video chat me.
And sometimes that might be appropriate. Like if you have something important that you want to discuss and you feel like it merits a phone call, like, yeah, by all means say that. But if it's just more like, I kind of want him to put more effort and like, you know, I want him to like pick up the phone and call me just because, not necessarily because there's anything more important that needs to be said through verbally, then I would say definitely introduce flirting. Like it's a romantic connection. So by virtue, flirting is a part of it.
Yeah, I know personally, this is in my experience, men kind of seem reluctant to take that step into phone or video. Not all, but it's like, I don't know, 60%. So it kind of is just like nudging them in that direction. Maybe if you know them like to a degree, maybe being the first to call them, or being like, hey, I'd love to see where you are. Let's do a video call or something.
So circling this back to like being an empowered woman and dating as an empowered woman, nudging men will be part of the process. And we need to be comfortable with that because we're modeling behavior that we want in return. And we all have something we can learn from each other. Like we have something to learn from, I mean, if you're heteronormative and you're dating men, like you have something to learn from them and they have something to learn from you. And part of that is modeling like what it looks like to be vulnerable, what it looks like to just pick up the phone and call. They're probably thinking about it. Like if they really like you, they're probably thinking about it. Everyone wants that like sensory experience of like hearing your voice and seeing what you look like that day. But men are scared too. Like I've had male clients tell me like, I don't want to seem creepy because like, I had one guy who called a girl and she was like completely thrown off by it. She was like, like we can text. And so like men are experiencing it too, where they're like, I don't know if I can call because I don't know like what that means, you know? And now it's a little different because now it's like more socially appropriate because we're physically distancing, but like, I think modeling that behavior and making them feel safe to call you is also part of it.
Yeah, one thing I do kind of like about the Corona thing on the dating apps, I don't know if you've noticed, but it has that button you can put, like I'm okay with like distance dates, like I'm cool, or I want to do video dates. So I think that is kind of cool because it already sets up that expectation.
Exactly.
Like, we're gonna do this. If we're gonna go on a date, we're gonna see each other through video and whatever. Yeah.
And I love that because with video, like you're jumping to so much, like you're just skipping a lot of unnecessary steps. You're seeing how they banter. You're seeing like their expressions, their voice, their inflection, their tone. Like you're getting a much more 3D experience than you would on text. So again, this pandemic has done good things for dating.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm interested to see how the paradigm changes coming out of it too.
Yeah, I think we have created a new normal,
Mm-hmm.
but we just have to continue with it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, yeah, it requires you to pre-screen people and pre-qualify better too. So, and
Totally.
that helps you go slower too. Like,
Exactly.
because the sooner you can cut someone off if they're not a good fit, like the sooner you can find someone who is, and then invest the right time in them.
Yes. And I think in the chat, she was asking the name of the group. But
oh yeah, Hanya,
yeah,
we'll put the link for sure. It's called Down to Mingle. It's on your Facebook page too, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So, what are your thoughts for people who are, because I know how I feel about this, but what do you think about people who are dating and they're not sure if they want to have kids or not? Like, do you think you need that figured out to be dating?
Not necessarily entirely figured out. However, you need to know where you stand on the spectrum. Like, if you are like a definite no, I don't want children, that needs to be shared. But if you are more so like, I could be open to it one day, you need to share that as well. But I could be open to it. I could be open to it someday. Dating someone who is like, I definitely want a family, that's probably not going to work. But I could be open to it someday. Dating someone who's like, I think I want a family. I don't know. I'm still figuring it out. Like, if it's the right time, that could probably be a good fit. And then if you're obviously like, no, I don't want children, then you should be dating someone who's like, no, I don't want children either. And if you definitely do want a family, you could date someone who is not really sure. But if you definitely know that you want it, you probably will do better with someone who definitely wants it too. So I think knowing where you stand on the spectrum, and then just being comfortable like verbalizing that is very important.
I love that. I totally agree. There's also, I've heard the response, like, I'm okay. I'm open to having kids, but I'm also open to not having kids. So,
Yeah.
like, it's not going to be the end of the world if I don't have kids. So there's also that kind of option that could work well for people too.
Yeah.
So I just kind of want to ask you about like these different kinds of people, because I know they asked me their questions, so I'd love to get your perspective. But for people, we kind of talked about those against apps, but what about those busy entrepreneurs that are like, I want to have a relationship, but I don't want to invest much time into it. I just don't care.
Those are my favorite people. Those are my favorite people. Yeah, those are my favorite people. Those are my favorite people because I'm an entrepreneur, and I know what it's like I know what it's like to have a business that consumes so much of your psyche and so much of your energy daily. However, like, I would argue that, and this is not me imposing my mentality on anyone, this is simply my personal reference to this. I would argue that strong relationships can only make your entrepreneurial journey that much more successful. And I think that obviously you do need to be communicating. Like, if you're just not open for a committed relationship, you should be saying that. If you just want to date because you want to explore different people and you want to have meaningful connections that don't necessarily immediately fertilize into something else, then you should just be communicating that. It's very easy. People are very receptive to open communication for the most part. However, I think that like the argument that you simply don't have time is a dangerous one unless you really are just like buckled down and focused on something that's short term. Like, you're just saying like, hey, like, I just want to build my company and sell it and move on to the next thing, which even then I still think that you have room for romance. I really don't think any of us just don't have room for relationships. Maybe not a committed monogamous relationship or a committed relationship of any kind. Maybe that's not something that you necessarily have time for, but we do have time to meet people. And we do have time to share meaningful experiences with people, and that's what dating is. So I would just be careful saying that, because I think it can really close you off. And I think that sometimes, based on the conversations I've had with clients, when I dig a little deeper, that's not usually the reason why they're not dating. That's kind of like the surface level that's like the surface level reason that kind of emerges. But when we dig a little deeper, a lot of times I find things like fear of rejection, or some past trauma that they've never really healed from, being broken, like heartbroken, and never really understanding what happened there. That is usually kind of lurking under the surface of, I'm just too busy and I just don't have time. Because if you're good at managing your time as an entrepreneur, which is a great skill to acquire, if you don't already have that, then there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to fit in romance into your life, or just dating in general. It doesn't have to be this full-on romantic experience, but I just feel like it's important and it's healthy. And I do think that it makes you a better entrepreneur. So
yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I think a lot of people don't have time. Part of it, I think people don't make time. And yep. I know for me personally, I used being an entrepreneur my first year as an excuse. And what was interesting, I wasn't just blocked from romantic relationships or physical relationships. I was blocked in, with friendships and clients. And like, I was keeping myself at arm's length and not getting vulnerable with people. And so I think it is important to assess, like, hey, is this really in alignment with my values, or am I making excuses? Yes. And is this rippling? Is this affecting other types of relationships rather than just romance? So being mindful of that is definitely important.
Yeah, because sometimes what happens, unfortunately, is your life kind of passes you by, and then you are in your later years and you've built an amazing career, but you never prioritized relationships. And now you're kind of like dumbfounded because you haven't dated in years. And now you're trying to get back into it, and that muscle isn't strong anymore, and you have to reactivate it. And that's really scary. And that's a boat where a lot of my clients are in. That's a boat that a lot of my clients are in. They've just been focused for so long on their career, and now they're trying to get back into dating, and they don't even know where to start. And I mean, luckily, like, I take care of them, but I mean, yeah, it is a possible reality. Like, if you keep putting it off with the idea of like, I just don't have time, like, this is my only priority, you might wake up one day and realize that was a little short-sighted.
Yeah. And I think too, people use their past experiences to keep their view limited of what a relationship can be. And yes. Like, oh, it has to be this way. Like, I used to think, oh, if I have a boyfriend, I have to see him like 4 to 5 times a week. And really, that was just a codependent relationship. Exactly. Where we just spent every day together, and it wasn't necessarily healthy. But you can, find an equally busy, driven, ambitious person, and, maybe do more video calls scattered throughout the week and see each other once a week or twice a week, or it doesn't have to be as time consuming as you maybe think it is.
I love that you said that so much. Yes, I completely resonate with that. We have the convenience of video. Like, I was cooking dinner the other day with a guy that I'm dating, and like, we were just both cooking dinner. It was really cool. It was just like, okay, great. Like, we don't have to necessarily like be in each other's presence. Like, we can just eat on camera together. It saves me from having to get ready and drive over. It saves you from having to get ready and driving over. And then, naturally when you're together, like, you just spend a lot more time. And then it just kind of like, you can't check your phone, you can't do other things. So yeah, I mean, we have video calls at our disposal, and then that just makes our time together so much more special because we've waited for it.
Exactly.
Hi, Alexa.
Hey, Alexa. It keeps it polarizing too.
Yes.
So yeah, why not go on a walk while you video chat? Or like, me and my girlfriend, like, we'll video chat while I'm doing my makeup, and I'll give her an update on what's going on in my love life. And so you can multitask, people.
Agreed.
Cool. So what do you recommend for people who are dating, who are really into kink, and they want to use vanilla dating apps, but they want to fulfill that need? Have you ever been asked that?
Actually, I have not been asked that, frankly. Yeah, it's funny. I was actually talking about this with Alexa today.
That's awesome.
Because I want this to be more of a component of what I do. But I'm learning this for myself, and I'm also imparting it on my clients. Communication. Like, ideally, we're not talking about like kink once we're already in the bedroom. Ideally, like, we're talking about that before or outside of the bedroom, just to kind of alleviate pressure. But I do think that it's important to communicate sexual preferences and having the vocabulary. And I'm sure Alexa could also speak on this as well. She said there's kinky dating apps.
Love it.
Yeah, I think having the vocabulary around that is really important too. Just knowing how to express yourself in that way, because it is different. And it's still like, I don't know, I grew up traditionally Lebanese, so I, for a long time, struggled with talking about my sexuality. So I, until very recently, was not comfortable having these conversations until I was pretty knee deep into a relationship. Now I'm reversing that model, and I'm learning how to speak about these things before I even get into a commitment, because I think that it's a really big part of who you are, and the other person should know. And you never know what is going to come out of that conversation. It might end up being one of the most exciting things, because when you do find out that you're compatible in that way, it's like, it's just amazing. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Alexa wrote, there's kinky dating apps and kinky people often use code words. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, we talk about this in like our master level trainings about values and values elicitation. And you, just by listening to people's keywords and the questions they ask you, you can discover, oh, what's important to them. Like, just the questions they ask you, oh, that's probably important to them if they're asking me. And then same thing if you ask them. So how do you value sex and relationships, you know? Seeing how they respond.
Yeah, and then Alexa said use a won't chart on date too. Yes.
Yes. If it's a high value, then you'll bring it up for second date. So if it's not a high value, they probably won't bring it up the first second date. So yeah, I think communicating is key, and then don't be afraid to weed out the people that aren't going to match that value or fulfill that need for you. Like, weed them out.
Oh yeah, I've recently been having these conversations with my mom, which is crazy.
I love it.
I never thought that me and my I think she's like 54-year-old Lebanese mom would be able to have these conversations, but like, we're finally at a point in our relationship where I can talk to her about sex, and she acknowledges how important that is for me to be compatible with someone. And I love it. Like, we were literally talking about it this morning, and she was just like, it's so important for me that you end up with someone who can pleasure you that way. Like, it's really important. So if my Lebanese mom can talk about that with me, then we should be able to communicate about it.
There you go. Last one, for those who want to be non-monogamous, what do you recommend to them for if they're using regular dating apps? Because sometimes too, the apps will be like, are you looking for casual or relationship? And that's not always, that doesn't summarize every situation.
I would also say that you just have to communicate about it. I love playing a game called 21 Questions, where I just prep like 21 questions that are really important to me about a person's values. I'm a huge fan of open-ended questions that don't make the other person feel like personally attacked or intruded upon. But the idea of the game is for both of you to answer a question within 30 seconds, and then it takes a total of 21 minutes. And within that 21 minutes, you've hopefully discovered what structure of a relationship they want, what their boundaries are, what if they are like into non-monogamy or maybe being monogamish, like what that actually looks like.
Monogamish. What is that? Can you define that in your lingo?
For me, monogamish is you only have one partner. So there's only one person that, this is my personal definition, there's only one person that you're sexually involved with. However, you might be at a restaurant and like allow them to flirt with a waitress, and you might like be at a party and
wait,
like
in front of you. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, usually if you're entering like a monogamous agreement, it's because you want to kind of play in the gray area a little bit, and you want to create an environment that has a little bit of risk in it, but you also want the safety of like a contained monogamous structure. So that could look like consensual flirting, and it could also look like maybe being comfortable like cuddling with a friend in front of them, or just letting them know that that's something that you enjoy doing, whether the friend is a female friend, a same-sex friend, or opposite gender friend. It could look like giving each other some leeway in terms of like giving compliments to people, like letting a friend know right in front of your partner, like, hey, you look handsome, or like, you look beautiful, you know? So it could look a lot of different ways, but the idea is like you're in a relationship with one person, but you're just kind of expanding the boundaries of what traditional monogamy looks like. You're kind of stretching those boundaries to create a little bit more room for risk and reward.
I love it. What would you, I know you're a model, and then I'm an actor and I sometimes do modeling. So when it comes to work related scenes, like if you had to do a shoot with like in your underwear with a man almost kissing, or I had to do a shoot where I was making out with someone, would you say that would be best for a monogamous relationship, or just would that fall under that category in your mind?
I think it just depends on the structure that you agree upon with that person. So I dated a guy a while back who was not comfortable with me modeling, and it honestly, like, it ended because of that.
Yeah.
Because that's just a really big part of my content, and I can't just like cut that out for someone. But
even normal model, like
normal modeling, yeah. He wasn't comfortable with the idea of being alone with a photographer and using my physicality as a means of promoting my brand. He just, don't even ask me why. This is like well before I became a dating coach, and I had the art of discernment at my disposal. But I've had, like, my last relationship, I always modeled. And I've modeled in bikinis, I modeled like semi-nude, and he was comfortable with it. Like, we would talk, and we would define the boundaries, like, okay, this is what I'm comfortable with. But he never got in my way when it came to like creation of any form. And obviously, like, if I wanted something that was a bit more like exaggerative, we would just have to revisit the terms, but we just had really open communication. And I would just say, like, you need to have that. And ideally, you know this again before you get into the relationship. Like, ideally, talking about this stuff on date 1 or 2 or 3, like, just saying, like, hey, I have a personal brand. If they don't already have you on social media, just letting them know, like, I have a personal brand and I'm very active on social, and modeling and acting is a big part of what I do. Sometimes that involves other men, sometimes that involves other women, whichever. And how do you feel about that?
Yeah. My last like big movie was, I had a few sex scenes. So I kind of like to just jokingly like mention it like on the first date and just kind of see how they react. And like, then I'll be able to know, like, because if they like start being like, oh, like, is it like porn? And I'm like, no, like, so I can tell if they're getting uncomfortable or if they're just simply curious, like, oh, like, that's cool. I mean, it just depends, but I do kind of make sure, because I had a relationship that he was not okay with me even being close to someone's face. So now I make sure, okay, right away, like, if you're not okay with my passions, like, adios. Like, you have to be able to deal.
Yeah. I want to see what Alexa said. She said those feel like separate buckets to me. One is the relationship and the other is the work a person does. Yeah.
Yeah,
Great.
totally.
Yeah. It is your job. I mean, it's like professional actresses and actors, like that's their job. That's how they clock in and clock out.
Yeah. A lot of people don't realize too, we don't 99% of the time, we don't feel, it's like a mechanical thing, you know, it's like me touching a water bottle, like, because there's no emotion there unless I have feelings for my scene partner, which normally you don't. It's just, for a lot of actors, it's more annoying to have to do sex scenes than it is like enjoyable because it's so technical.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I guess for the last question, because we're about to be out on time, tell us a little bit more about your Facebook group, what's going on there, how can people join, all the good stuff.
Totally. It's called Down to Mingle digitally, and you can just find it by searching Down to Mingle. Right now, as I shared, it's a community for conscious daters who are physically distancing. And I just really want to help people build community, and I want to help give them an opportunity to connect with people on a bit of a smaller and more intimate scale than dating apps. It's just a lot more, it's not really about just that. It's about building meaningful connections. You may not be necessarily open to dating right now, but you at least want to meet people and you at least want to talk to people who are open for connection down the line. Mm-hmm. And that's really what the group is intended for. I also have some exciting plans for it. I want to I've already done like one virtual matchmaking experience, and I want to create more of those. So so that's definitely in the works. So
I'll have to try one.
Definitely. Yeah, I would love to have you. But the idea for it long term is to more intentionally match people. But for now, it's just an opportunity to connect with other people and build community, and whatever comes of that, as long as it's respectful and consensual, then yeah. And you can just join by finding it on Facebook. So
yeah, it's also good practice just to talk to the opposite sex, like, or whatever sex. I mean, it's just good practice.
Totally. And the only thing I would say though, if you are going to join, please introduce yourself, and please answer.
I need to do that.
Yes, please introduce yourself, just because everyone who's introduced themselves has reached out to me separately to be like, hey, this is really cool, by the way. Like, I've met so-and-so. And I'm like, cool. But it's because like we can actually like see you. So if mm-hmm. people don't know you exist, even if they see you on the member group, it's kind of more awkward to reach out unless you've made that invitation. So
yeah. Awesome. Oh, well, real quick, you like matchmaking then?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I wouldn't like call myself a matchmaker, but I think right now, because we're in what we're in, it's been really fun to just intuitively match people. And I have a big network, and luckily my work expands my network all the time. So it's definitely something that I've been playing with more.
I love it. Yeah. Awesome. The hot, young, sexy, new Patty Stanger.
I love it. Thank you.
So awesome. Anything else you want our audience to know before we say au revoir?
I would just say, like, now is honestly a great time to be dating. I would just like give you that extra, I don't want to say push, but that extra encouragement to really feel good about dating right now. Like, this is really what I think a lot of people needed. So if you are dating right now and you are single, I just really want you to take that in and have gratitude, because I really do think that great things are in store. I think that dating is going to continue changing. And I think that we're going to start seeing a much more wholesome culture when it comes to modern dating. So I'm really excited for that.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming back without the hamster.
Thanks for having me. And this is awesome.
Y'all make sure to follow her. I'll put the link in the description or the chat as well. So stay tuned with Elsa and everything she has, because she's so awesome and has so much value to give. And y'all stay safe.
Bye.